Hey folks, welcome to Biomassed. We appreciate you guys hopping onto the stream with us or listening to us on your RSS feed. So have a pretty neat crowd in here with us tonight. A lot of different voices. So we're going to talk a lot about Hotfix Echo. You know, it's kind of the Air Jordan hotfix, if you will. But there's a lot more things going on than just the myofib adjustments. It is also pre-FanFest time, so there's some folks in the channel that's looking to head out to Iceland here in the next week or two. We'll probably get a little bit of discussion about that. As always, a little bit of news about Dust, a little bit of news about other things. Probably may pitch out a couple shout outs for some other games out there. But we have a pretty fun show for you, I think, or at least it'll be an exciting one based on the folks that we've got in channel. So without further ado, we're going to start with our intros. This time we're going to shake it up. We're going to go from the bottom of the list to the top. So for everybody in channel, check it out. So without further ado, the Biomassed.net Productions proudly brings to you the heavyweight champion, the reigning, the undisputed champion of fail, Soraya Zell.
Yep, I'm a member of CPM1. I'm a co-host here on the show, and I'm going to FanFest this year.
Alrighty. And the next guy on the list, the man that slings more spreadsheets than two Jewish accountants at tax time, Pokey Draven.
Holy shit. Can you say that?
He went there.
He went there. I'm Pokey Draven from OSG Planetary Operations and co-host here on Biomassed.
And ladies and gentlemen, we have the former shadow governor of Malden Heath and the man that most wishes that he was on CPM1 but will tell you that he doesn't and is secretly campaigning for CPM2, Kane Sparrow.
Oh my gosh, geez. Former CPM, leader of the Negative Feedback Alliance, not wanting to run for CPM ever again, Kane Sparrow.
How very Clinton of you. And ladies and gentlemen, the court jester of dust, the artist extraordinaire, he of the Twitter account and the man of 1,000 alts, Mr. Jadek Menaheim.
Jadek here, Dust Bunny, Twitter guy, and jamming out to Quad City DJs this patch.
Oh, that's totally legit, by the way. Okay, folks, so next on our list, the one and the only Iron Wolf Saber, the man of all things form, all things, well, I would say tinfoil, but he can't even afford tinfoil. It's more like aluminium foil as I watched my Top Gear episode right before we got onto this. So, Iron Wolf.
It's more like paper foil, but nonetheless, Iron Wolf
Wax
Saber,
paper.
CP1.
Totally, that's wax paper. That's all you.
I can't even afford to wax on it.
Okay, and folks, one of our, I think it's the first time you've been back on the show for a second round, so we've got Breakin Stuff, who is a pseudo forum troll slash ideas man slash trying to give constructive feedback when it suits him, but only occasionally, and it's really hard to tell when he's not fucking with somebody. Breakin.
Well, that's because if you're fucking with somebody and giving constructive feedback at the same time, you're doing it right. I'm the last of the goons on Dust 514 right now, sadly. And I'm mostly here to talk about AV and my predictions because I haven't had a chance to check out Hotfix Echo yet.
Okie dokie. And we've got a return guest who's one of my best bros and the king of bacon and the prince of beer, the ubiquitous BAMM HAVOC.
Hello, just some random dude. Hey.
I love how he does that because he's actually like 6'4" and like 225 in real life. So very, very dainty intro of you on that one, Bam.
Dude, shush.
Yeah. By the way, I still can't figure out how you fit in that little fucking drift racer car that you have.
I don't have a fucking drift racer car yet. It's a Subaru STI, right? It's not a drift racer car. No, I don't do some boy racer shit.
Okay, all right. So Bieber Havoc is here with us tonight.
Dick.
Yes, the dick suit fits tightly. All right. So let's go ahead and hop right into our CPM updates. We're going to turn this one over to our CPM members, Zell and Iron Wolf, for a little bit of discussion. And what I've asked them to do, just as a preface, is they probably don't have a lot of news, as we know, because they're going into FanFest. But some of the things that they want to bring up to CPM on the behalf of the community, I've asked them to kind of highlight that to us. So, guys,
CCP
please take it away.
to the CPM.
Yeah, same thing.
So I'm gonna be there, and there's not a lot of formal work for us there, but we are going to be meeting there with some of our folks that are there on the CCP side of things, and hopefully we can kind of reiterate further on the communication bit. I know there's a lot that they need to be more upfront with and open on to the community. If I get the time, I would love to see if I can convince a couple of Eve developers that Dust needs love and attention from Iceland as well. But we'll see how much of that I can get done.
All right, and that's probably a much appreciated sort of secondary objective there, talking to some of the Eve devs, and as we know, we have a couple friends in the court up there.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard on the official end to get a lot going with the Iceland devs, I think, because we have our particular stuff that we're working on. But I'm hoping I can maybe just win over some hearts and minds or something. I've got I actually asked Jadek for help with this. I know that sometimes there's an impression maybe that we don't have the same dedication of fan base, and so I had Jadek put together for me some of the many pieces of artwork that he's come across relating to Dust 514, so that I can show people just how much there is certainly a rich and diverse interest of fans in our game.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good way to approach that. And one of the things that is probably not a bad idea to throw out there is that something we talked about last week was the respondents to the e-vote match in terms of like their answers for Dust and sort of that continued level of interest even from the CSM candidates. And that's all. And you might actually be able to meet maybe a couple of the newly minted CSM members there.
Sure, though if they go the way they did last year, they won't announce the new CPM until the final day of the
No,
event.
That's true, but you'll know who the candidates are that are there, and you'll probably also be able to figure out who's got a legitimate shot, and probably they're well worth. I don't know.
Well, I know I can talk to I know I could just assume the goon candidates. So
Yeah, well, yes, but we can also assume the goon candidates are going to tell you to get fucked because that's kind of where their position on Dust is.
That's also probably true.
Okay, all right. So
there's no probably about it.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. So let's see, Iron Wolf, anything from you, brother?
Oh, I'm not going to FanFest this year, but I got a bunch of cards I want to start playing after FanFest is all over. Starting with CPM 2 news for you guys. So try to figure out when the election is. Speaking with CCP, there is a desire to keep CPM 1 around a little bit, but the thing is, I do not want to see a repeat of CPM 0's term, which was still probably the longest in any either council's history. The next card I want to start trying to burn and actually crank up the thumb screws on is the news on Legion, because the lack of any word, the silence is deafening. It's poisonous and it's getting worse. And the longer this goes unaddressed, the longer it's gonna cause harm.
Yeah, and I think that's actually probably a fair statement. And in all honesty, it's probably about time, since you'll effectively be, approximately a year, FanFest to FanFest when the, sort of the rug was pulled out from under a lot of people. So perhaps some of the wounds have healed, and I think that's a good thing. One thing I would ask, and this is like truly as a member of the community, and it's usually something you have to do in kind of a, it's a legitimate way. Like if I were ever in the position to buy, JC, i.e. CCP Rouge, or Ratadia beer, I would honestly point to the efforts that CCP Seagull and the team over in Iceland, they have clearly in the last probably 18 months, definitely since Seagull took over, they have really changed how they interact with the players in terms of a consistent and fairly positive way. And I would just offer that there's probably a lot of good reasons why proactive interaction with the community is in the long term going to be healthy for Dust or Legion or whatever they're going to call the thing is, if they're going to make another game out of this. So that, again, that's just my point. It's not saying somebody's doing it better. It's just there's different ways of doing it. And I fully understand there's probably a lot of good reasons why people are gun shy. So, okay, anything else on pre-FanFest news or anything like that, guys?
I'd like to just make one simple statement that's actually not being an asshole about the communication thing. You know, when CCP figures out that, for the most part, people aren't getting mad that they're not giving news. It's when they give the news, it's too late to really give anything constructive on it. That's what's pissing people off for the most part that I've noticed.
Well, in this case, I don't think it's about being too late and pissing people off in terms of reaction. It has more due to the fact that it's so frustrating to not know the future of Dust 514 because Legion is looming over it. And as long as that's silent on it, there's a lot of lack of faith in CCP.
I was being very general. I wasn't referring specifically to the Legion thing, just as communication in general.
Now that the FanFest schedule is out and you guys know what room the Dust panel is going to be in, have you guys been able to secure streaming for said panel? I think I remember Jita room being one of the bigger ones, but that also may be just one of the roundtable rooms as it changes up.
Yeah, it's as far as I know, it's a small room, and as far as I know, it will not be possible to stream it.
Can we record it? I think they're letting people do that with the Eve roundtables. In fact, I'm pretty sure they are.
So.
This was actually asked. And honestly, the guy to answer this is probably going to be Falcon, because he engages on this very specifically, at least from the Eve perspective of some of those roundtables, that they wanted to. That they didn't have the personnel to stream or cover them all, and then two, they did want to have some exclusivity for the actual FanFest attendees. But if I'm not mistaken, I'm fairly confident that he laid out that it was very much fair game for people to record it or report on it, from the community.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would love if they would be like, cool on things and record stuff for us. But I am planning on bringing my own camcorder, and hopefully that won't be a problem. We'll see what we can get.
I would say the most important thing is just to get a recording of good audio. So if you have someone who has just an independent audio recording device, maybe not even necessarily the video, I would go that route.
I don't have anything that just records audio, so it's
Do you have an iPhone? That records audio brilliantly.
And video.
Yeah.
No, I don't have an iPhone because I don't have Apple garbage. Sorry.
Well, Android does just the same, mate.
Yes, I know, but I would use a camcorder because the phone is more likely to crash out and die partway through.
All the devices. Have everyone turn on all the devices.
Yeah, maybe they'll all cancel each other out. But I think that is a very legit thing that I would honestly recommend that you guys engage, and again, probably directly to Falcon, and he will answer you because he's responded to a couple of my tweets.
I'm hoping to speak with him in advance of the roundtable if I can.
And remember, sometimes asking for forgiveness is better than asking for permission.
This is true. But I will tell you this. I will ping Falcon on Twitter right now, and he's usually really good about responding to tweets. And I'll ask him, he's like, hey, is that fair game to do that? And as long as he doesn't say the word no, I will fully expect to have recordings, 8x10 glossies, and HD footage.
That's an impressive expectation there. I hope we can deliver. I wouldn't. As we said before, you shouldn't really expect anything groundbreaking at FanFest this year, dust-wise. I don't know if somebody will, there's always the chance somebody slips up and drops something awesome, but who knows?
To be honest, if they drop something awesome, that's their problem, not yours if you're recording it.
That is a true statement.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If anything gets said on the at the thing, then it's fair game. So, I would love if they just started spewing all sorts of extra information, but who knows?
Okay.
Remember, we just have to buy them a lot of alcohol.
That never works.
Okay, guys. So let's kind of transition to Hotfix Echo. So I'm going to go ahead and get it out of the way because I know we're going to talk about it. So just so everybody's tracking, as I said as we were starting the show, and we talked about it prior to the show. We didn't want to turn this into the the Air Jordans episode of Dust. So we will talk about myofibs and the perceptions, the realities, and a little bit of the drama and the fun that's associated with those. So I'd like to go ahead and knock that one out. Let's take care of our discussions about all things myofib related, and then we can transition into the rest of Hotfix Echo. Does that sound good, guys?
Yep. I am
Sure.
okay. I am
Yeah.
okay with the myofibs as they
Yeah,
are.
I think we can jump right into the subject.
I'm not like. I mean, they're like, I don't know. Maybe I didn't do it right. It didn't seem like I was that effective at jumping. I had a proto assault suit. I think I chose because I heard you can kill yourself jumping around with a scout suit. And I put like, I want to say, how many did I fit on there? It was 3 or 4 of the proto level Myofibrils. And I don't know, it didn't seem all that effective. There was one particularly effective moment where I was jumping back and forth around a corner, and it seemed to agitate people heavily. But it seemed like it has some utility, I guess. But I do think it's probably balanced with its loss of your better uses for those slots.
There are 2 things I've noticed about them which are kind of interesting. You can start a charge with a weapon and jump like wherever you want to, and it's opened up a lot of usability with like the breach forge gun and my Nova knives and the ion pistol particularly. So you can just jump and then come up behind someone and ghost them.
I was about to say the thing I've seen with that one was actually the forge gun one, and that's like even without the myofibs, scouts could pretty much jump over your head anyway. And then with them, it's kind of into the realm of Warner Brothers cartoons ridiculousness. But what got me was when I saw a forge gunner jump up in the air and then like get a top shot with a forge gun. That one, it was legitimately impressive. So I got to give I can't remember who it was. I should have wrote it down, but I give the guy props for doing it. But that's a pretty dangerous move.
Yeah, I mean, now, mind you, I just want to point out that one potential perk of the ability to do crazy stuff like that, like jumping up and firing a forge blast from midair type of thing, is that, those sorts of videos of, like, Battlefield gameplay are really, really popular. Like, when people are doing crazy trick shots in that game that are probably glitchy to begin with. So, I mean, I'm not sure that's necessarily a bad thing. I know the one thing, I think I heard there was someone said something about that you could drop ship surf up to the enemy MCC and then jump in it and put uplinks in there.
Yeah, I think I was covering that.
I think that probably needs to be looked at.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of particular to where you can do it. I think it's a domination map where the red line changes and you could put uplinks into an enemy MCC. And camp them.
It's a bigger problem than that. I was actually playing on that specific map. The way it works is if you kind of orient yourself by cardinal directions, the MCC that's roughly on the west side of the map is not in the red line, whereas the MCC on the east side of the map is in the red line. So that's the one where they've adjusted the MCC where you can basically fall down onto the pipes. It's the one where it's the domination map where there's that big center spire, and you traditionally used to need a dropship to get to the upper levels. Otherwise, you were kind of hosed. Well, when they moved that MCC over, basically 2 things happened. Now the MCC is totally in the field of play, so you can put your own uplinks on it, and you can spawn camp people. Like you can get on the pipes, and they'll fall right in front of you. And you can
that's Fracture Road. How often do you actually see Fracture Road? It's been a long time since I've seen
Domination.
it in Domination.
It's in heavy rotation in Domination.
Okay, I'm gonna have to just queue straight up for Domination then until I find it.
Don't do it alone.
Yeah, I will. I don't have friends, remember?
So
no, but you do have cronies that hang out with you.
Yes. So Pokey, what are your general thoughts on the Air Jordans?
Well, it's a couple things. I have an issue with how they're performing on a conceptual level. I haven't personally tested the proto ones because I didn't care to train it to 5. But when I first heard of the Myrofib jump bonus, what I was thinking its intended use for was this is going to allow you to clear obstacles you normally couldn't clear, like small obstacles, like small walls, some of those pesky boxes that are in the way. And basically effectively work as a means to cover terrain faster because you can effectively parkour over, reasonably sized objects you normally couldn't get over. And then I know there had been mention prior of a piece of equipment that would be like a cloak in a way where it'd have a duration and a cooldown. And it was an active equipment for infantry, which would be used as a jump pack of sorts. And I always assumed that that would be the piece of equipment that would allow you to jump on top of buildings and whatnot. And obviously the Myrofibs are currently fulfilling both of those roles at the same time. So, when you've got people jumping up multiple stories passively with their natural jump, I kind of have an issue with that because I think it's going beyond what at least what I felt it should have been in the first place, which is more of a means to transverse terrain quickly in a horizontal fashion. And then the jump pack would be for vertical movement, where it's a short duration, it's a temporary boost, but it does launch you very high, so you can get up on top of those buildings and whatnot. And I like the function of getting up high. I just don't think you should be doing it 100% of the time with your passive jump. Is essentially what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I go back to something, I think it was on Rotati's big board of things that caught a lot of people's attention as a positive comment, which was, it said, I think something to the effect of people should generally be able to jump higher. That was, I think, basically the comment. And, I'm certainly not butthurt about the whole, myofibs thing. I'm like, it's just a thing. I will be honest with you. I think it's a bit cartoony. So I personally don't dig it, but I'm certainly not upset about it either. Now, one thing I would offer is that I think that, and this is just my opinion, a better way to have approached this would have been basically adding some like jump height to basic suits, like particularly the heavy suits. Because even Rotati said, hey, now you don't have to have like a 3-inch curb that can stop your movement. Well, yeah, but did you need to add a module to that? Why couldn't you have just added like a little bit of jump capacity, in the spreadsheet for the damn suit, which I think would have helped out a lot. And again, going back to one of the beasts that we all have with Dust is the movement in game is generally just not good. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah.
So why not, because we're never going to have a vaulting mechanic or any of that other stuff, why not add a little bit of base jump height to people so that you can have a little bit more free-flowing movement? And I don't necessarily have a problem with myofibs increasing jump capability. I mean, it makes logical sense that you could do that. But there also needs to be a pretty serious stacking penalty. And frankly, it probably needs to negatively affect your stamina. It needs to, like the higher you jump or the bigger your jump, probably the more juice you use.
So, talking to people in game about the situation, first off, I love the myofibs. I think it adds a huge dynamic to the game, and it improves a lot of bad stuff that was bad aspects of the map design where they were trying to corral people in really odd ways. And I think it kind of defeats some of these corralling things, and it also makes all of the high areas of the map, rather than being you have to have a dropship to go and camp out high spaces, anybody can access it relatively easily. Now, I do think that some of the issues currently are like panic jumping. So like, something happens, you get engaged in combat, and then you instantly jump high. And also the higher jumps also may be causing, using the same stamina as a normal jump. I definitely see that there. I think, and talking to some people, an idea that came up was implementing something to where if you tap X, you do a normal jump. But if you hold X, you can do a larger jump that uses more of your stamina. So in order to actually do a max myofib jump, you would actually have to hold X, for a duration of time. And then just like think of it as the scrambler rifle. You hold it and, you can fire a larger damage shot that then builds up your heat faster. In that same respect, you do something like that actually eats up your stamina more. So maybe if you do a max jump, it takes, amount of time to actually charge up those jumps. And at the same time, you only can maybe do 1 or 2 of those in a row. So it also adds an element of skill to using the jump mods, because you have to, time the jump. Are you going to fully charge it up, or are you going to do a little jump? That kind of thing. I think also someone actually mentioned this too, is that what you could do is if you implemented that mechanic, you could actually make it to where that works for all jumping. So we're talking about increasing jump height, make it to where anybody, even if they don't have myofibs equipped, can hold X and then release it and actually use up more of their stamina to clear obstacles.
Yeah, I mean, those are all I think legitimate notes and comments on that, Kane. I mean, I certainly don't disagree with a lot of it. It's just, I think it just strikes me as that what they've injected into the game as it currently sits right now is
Fun.
well, I think that's definitely a matter of perception. I mean, again, do I think it's fun? Not really. I don't think it's bad either, but in all honesty, I think it's a little bit too cartoony for me. I mean, some of it. Now, I think well, let me put it this way: the extent with which it is taken now is, and I would also reference one quick thing, and I kind of mentioned this earlier in our Skype channel. When I think a lot of us view it as fun, in all honesty, because we're comparing Dust right now to Dust as we've seen it for the last couple of years. And let's be honest with ourselves. There's a lot of things not fun about the game at times. So something that's a change this big that you can do some, albeit some creative, but again, some cartoony things, that's probably fun to a lot of people. I don't find it fun, but I'm certainly not gonna try to burn the house down about it. Real quick, Bam, you're raising your hand. What'd you have?
I think all of you guys have got it wrong, to be honest. You guys are focusing on the here and now. You guys aren't looking at the bigger picture. If you guys think about this as that Dust is a test platform for Legion, what does this jumping mechanic have in Legion? Think of that sort of side of things, they are showing their hand early, I think, when it comes to Legion. Yeah, fun is subjective. If people are having fun with the mechanic, cool beans. It helps my Forge Gunner and my HMG. I don't give a shit about the mechanic. I'm still going to kill you with my HMG, so yeah.
Fair point.
I got to add into BAM with this one, especially if they tighten up the dispersion on the Assault HMG. It's going to turn those damn guns into anti-aircraft guns for blowing up drop suits flying.
Yeah, totally. Completely agree with that, yes. The advanced HMG has many times outgunned my proto HMG, which is why I tend to, for the 5 million clone march, whatever you want to call it, I ran advanced suits, and I did better in my advanced suit with my advanced HMG than I did in my proto suit with my proto gear and complex everything. So, yeah, if they tighten up the dispersion of the advanced HMG, they're going to be fucking pub stomping with HMGs again, so yeah.
Well, I mean, like, the thing is so, Jay, as you said, as comparison now, I think it is with the lack of an ability to do, say, great vaulting mechanics or, some of the other that type of more fluid movement, I think it's a great option that you can choose it, and it does have a cost, because if you want that really high jumping capability, you are going to lose a lot of fitting capability for other things. And I can buy it from a lore aspect too, because you're in a mechanized suit. It can more than certainly do superhuman things. And to begin with, not only are you in a mechanized suit, but you're in a specifically engineered clone that was designed for the purposes of being ideal in combat.
Hey man, I'm all about it. So from a lore perspective and and a sci-fi perspective, when am I going to get, like, I don't know, something other than iron sights on a rifle? When am I going to get, I don't know, EKGs? When am I
would
gonna
love
get
like an
number of
actual.
Hey, iron sights withstand EMP, which is a very sci-fi weapon.
Yeah.
Hey, okay. Again,
yeah, that is a good point though. Is you do have to add, like, if you do go back more to the laser sights, you do have to actually have that affected by
no, you don't.
EMPs. Yeah, you do.
Okay, all right, Zell.
Because
honestly,
I'm gonna take my 3 seconds and tell you right now that if you really want me to break into a lesson on how these things really work, I can, but you probably don't want me to do that.
Okay.
Suffice it to say,
All right,
it would not affect it.
I hate to say this, but a scope's not going to be affected by EMP.
If you say so.
Considering I use scopes all the time, and
Okay.
yeah, even a laser dot sight's not going to be affected by EMP.
Do you get EMP'd often?
Every day.
Gee.
Last time I got EMP, I felt really sick. It was not a pleasant experience.
But like, I would like to see at some point an actual like slot option to change that
For
on
sights,
your gun.
Customizable weapons. What is this magic you're talking
What is
about?
this madness you're
That
speaking?
would be awesome. That'd be awesome. I'd
You
love
strike
to
a good point there, actually.
pick like a laser
why
sight,
give us
an iron
silly
sight,
gimmicks
whatever.
like jumping over buildings and stuff?
No.
Why not actually focus on the game
It-
and give us guns that can have changeable sights and
Yeah,
so on
the
and so
thing
forth?
is, the jumping mechanics, I would not consider it a gimmick at all, because if you think about it, I mean, even Sea Pirate.
No, that was a
made
poor
it-
choice of words. That was a poor choice of words. Gimmick, perhaps, yes. It's, again, subjective.
Unfortunately, the jumping mechanics are a band-aid fix for the heavy jumping problem that we've had for the last 2 years. You know, it's had unintended side effects that everybody thinks are cool, but it's the band-aid for fixing heavies being stymied by a 4-inch tall wall.
Oh, so because of my fat ass, everyone gets to jump 50 feet, when I only get to jump 4 feet now. Oh, great, cool.
Correct.
You shouldn't even have to jump a 4-inch wall in order to get over it. You should be just walking over it.
I know, right?
Logic. This is a CCP game.
I
Quit using
refuse
logic.
to raise my leg.
Nonetheless, thanks to the help of Aeon Amandi and our other, what's his name? I keep forgetting. The one who keeps stealing the data from the Catma database. Thundergroove, that's his name. Couple of interesting things about the Myofibrils we found out. One, the stacking penalty gets inversed around stack 4, which leads to some hilarious results. So that's definitely still bugged.
Wait, they did the wormhole bug?
Yeah, so you can tell when you put the fifth one on, because you actually end up jumping way higher. I will say that, I mean, I've actually been running around with just 3 after Rattati made that post about limiting them to 3. It definitely, you can get to most spots. I would say that if we could keep with 4, it would probably be the best, because you can still, there's a few very campy spots that you can't get to with 3, like Overwatch, Catwalk Overwatch over Alpha on the Cargo Hub map, or aka the Orbit Artillery or Rings map.
Then the other thing we found out thanks to Thundergroove is that the Myofibrils do not affect jump height, they affect jump speed.
Which
Yeah,
is why
that was actually
everyone
kind of
has that floaty moon sensation, because it's all about deceleration rather than.
Well, that's actually, that is the other component of it. I think the jump damage probably needs to be accounted for a little bit better as well. I mean, like I said, I don't necessarily have a problem with people, having flubber jumps, but I think it needs to be handled a little bit more seriously than probably it is. And I'm sure that they're probably going to tweak it and adjust it and all that kind of good stuff. It just, like I said, if you add something like this in there, you probably need to think through the second and third order effects of having it in. And my other point ultimately was, I think there are ways that they could have achieved things that people would have liked quite a bit, again, in terms of the mobility aspects, not just the lulls part of it, but literally just helping the mobility of the player out, that did not require having a module to do it, or needing only one module with which to do it at the most. So that, again, that was my sort of my comment on it. And I did see there's a lot of people that got a little emotional about it. I think probably unnecessarily.
Well, mechanical-wise, it's the aspect of being able to jump high is going to remain most likely because of the meta is too enjoyable. And the word I'm seeing flung around in forums a lot, which I haven't seen since almost Chromosome, is the word fun. And that is going to be really hard to argue against.
I remember getting on after Echo dropped, and literally hearing people go "we" over comms.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. So I mean, I have a thought on that, which, and again, I absolutely don't disagree that it probably is fun for a lot of people. So I'll save my thoughts until the end of the show on it, but I do have a little bit of a perspective on that that's slightly different. Like I said, I don't have any beef against it, but just a different way to look at it.
Hopefully the jetpack or the jump pack, whatever they're going to decide to call, when it does come in, will replace the Myofibril in that function, and the Myofibril will get them tuned down afterwards.
Okay.
Well, at the same time, so.
Sure.
But right now, it is providing very useful data for possible design of the jump pack as well, so.
Okay.
I mean, it's definitely going to help things out.
So,
before we shut this one down, as far as it goes, shit, I lost my train of thought. Never mind. Fuck it. Perfect.
So we're going to go ahead and switch to the next topic, and then we'll talk a little bit about the the assault HMG slash the pseudo autocannon, which I think conceptually and on paper I'm a big fan of. I actually like the idea that he was laying out, but I think again, much a little bit like we saw with the Myofibs and some other stuff, the execution not so good. So basically, the idea behind the assault HMG was to increase its lethality against light vehicles or vehicles in general, over and above the HMG, significantly lower fire rate with a significantly higher damage per shot. That was sort of the theory behind it. And again, you can call it a breach HMG or assault or autocannon, however you want to rephrase it. I like the idea because it's so noticeably different than the other HMGs. And I also like the idea of having something with some punch that was basically beyond bad breath range, which is where the other HMGs are right now.
Honestly, if this doesn't work out, I haven't had a chance to test it. I haven't had a chance to look at the dispersion. Honestly, if it doesn't really work very well, I think the next step would be to take it to an actual autocannon style weapon where you get like 4 shots per second, high damage.
Yeah, I mean, this was literally the first thing I tested out because I was very keen to try out the assault HMG when it came out. So long story short, again, on paper works really well. I think it's like actually a mechanical problem that they didn't account for because I assume that the rate of fire or rounds shot has a direct impact on the reticle scaling down and dispersion decreasing.
No, it's the fact that they didn't change the rate of reticle dispersion.
Yep. Okay. I think we just said the same thing, but we moved our hands in different directions when we were talking. But long story short is basically your reticle stays wide open and legitimate. And I don't know if that's normal dispersion or not, but when you're at like 20 meters from like a cargo container and you shoot, it is like you could literally have like an assault suit run past you like a little duck at a shooting gallery at the fair. Like guys running back and forth in front of that cargo container, and you will 50-50, you're going to lay a glove on them.
I unfortunately hadn't had the pleasure to test the assault HMGs out because I don't have level 4, and I have the unfortunate displeasure of dealing with the bugged standard version.
Dispersion is still the same amongst all the whole batch.
I think you have two problems right here. One is at the base level of dispersion when it starts firing, it never gets better. It never starts to decrease dispersion, and that's why I was asking. Like, I don't know if it's based on rounds fired. That's what equals, the decrease, because you can hold the trigger as long as you want. It's just not moving. So I don't think it's a time thing. But the other component is because its rate of fire is so much is like half of what a normal HMG is basically. It exacerbates the problem with dispersion. So I would offer that if you really want to have like the fact that we had this whole inverse dispersion / recoil mechanic for the HMG is utterly fucking laughable. This is actually honestly one of the things that is truly a pet peeve with me, and I'm not even a dedicated HMG guy. But you really need to have it be a much more accurate weapon. Like you bring its dispersion down. I don't care if the base reticle ever moves or not, but it needs to be much more accurate in terms of its firing mechanism. Otherwise, it's going to be totally useless.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, if you think about it, it has to function, in all honesty, kind of like a rail rifle.
It performs better in CQC right now. I mean, it really does. The dispersion on it.
The thing I don't know if you guys have seen any of my posts on it, but I've been saying this about the old Assault HMG. The only thing that needed to be fixed was the dispersion. The tighter the dispersion, Kane's made this point too. The tighter the dispersion, the harder it is to use in CQC. And by the same token, the easier it is to use at range.
Well, that was the whole point. Like when, if you think about it, several months ago when they adjusted the HMG, like it used to fire basically at that center pixel always. It was basically you could drill holes into people with it if you had good aim. That works. That type of mechanic or that type of structure works really well for like the autocannon right now. Like if they would bring that back for, like literally like pinpoint accuracy, and then keep the reticle wide, that would work very well, I think, and that would fit a lot of good things. I also think it really need to increase the range on it too a little bit.
Well, what you're describing works for the forge gun.
I mean, I would have them walk back the dispersion initially, and then see how that works, and then maybe start addressing the range. Because right now you really can't get a feel for the range at all because the bullets are going all over the place.
Yeah, no, that's a fact.
It's kind of comical because the fire rate is actually 1/4 of a normal HMG, and because it does sound very cool. I will give them that, but like because there's so few bullets, you can actually really dial in and see what the bullets coming out at the end of the gun, and it's almost comical at the angle you see them popping out at. I mean, it doesn't make any sense for it. It looks like it's coming out at a 30-degree angle out of the barrel. It looks really stupid.
It's really. I didn't even think about it, but that's very true.
Like this is like I haven't done as much academic work on it as like as like Breakin and some of the other guys. But when I was looking through this, basically I was like, okay, the machine guns do not function this way. I don't necessarily have a problem with a minigun being a beast mode in CQC if it hits you. Now, whether what I think the point is like how do you make it somewhat realistic? And again, bullets coming out at a 30-degree angle in a cone basically is ridiculous. So the idea of dispersion with the HMG particularly is kind of asinine. What it needs to have is like serious recoil, and then eliminate the aim down sight from it, and you basically keep a fat reticle on that thing with the pinpoint accuracy in the middle. That actually would do a lot of, I think, what Breakin. We come at it from different schools of thought, but there's certain components of it where I can get behind. So dispersion for an HMG, not good. And if you think about it, dispersion is literally it's basically mechanical inaccuracy. I can't get behind. I can get behind recoil. I can get behind different like charge mechanics and stuff like that, or heat is a good one. But dispersion is just not a good mechanic.
It's dice rolling.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Unfortunately, just the way that the HMG is designed in Dust is so fucking just back-assward. It's just, I don't even know how to describe it. It doesn't work at all like a real heavy machine gun.
I think. I mean, literally, what if you just added because there's basically no recoil to it. So what if you added recoil? And
it's not going to help in CQC.
Before the heat buildup changes, there was actually a large amount of recoil that would happen near the tail end before you overheated. But after the heat changes, you never get to that point, so you actually never see the recoil that's actually on the gun anymore.
Yeah, not only that, when the recoil is higher, it actually helps you because it walks the bullet straight up the target into their head.
Yeah, but riding recoil is a fairly practical, logical, and legitimate way to play with a sustained fire weapon. Totally makes sense to me.
It is. It's just problematic when you put it into a ubiquitous CQC weapon.
Yeah, again,
that's another ball of wax.
Yeah, but anyway, like specifically reference the Assault HMG. I think great idea, incredibly bad execution at this point. They desperately need to touch that thing.
The funny thing is if you click the spreadsheet on my signature down at the bottom. If you rotate all the way to the right side, it shows all my proposed stats for AV weapons. The proposal for autocannon is one of the ones I have in there. It's very different from the way it's set up by Rotati.
Okay. How about any comments on the regular HMGs now they've again dialed back the range on them?
It's not going to solve the problem.
I mean, people seem to not really be too torn up about the changes. They're like, yeah, I feel like I'm still killing people. That is the general consensus I'm getting among.
I think the Myofib thing is actually overshadowing a lot of because people are so focused on playing around with that. You don't get a lot of experimentation with other things right now. I will say that I have played around with the HMGs, and it is a noticeable difference. And I think it's just not helpful. In all honesty, it was not. I think at best it's a neutral change. At worst,
it's not going to solve the problem that Rotati stated is a problem.
Yeah, no, I'll buy that. But again, I think at best it's neutral. At worst, it's not a positive.
I tend to agree.
I think to really let this play out, though, they need to get the Assault HMG back to that old style dispersion or lack thereof. and then just let it play out in terms of people using the Assault HMG and then these modified, the shorter range, still high dispersion HMGs, and just see where the numbers go.
If they did that, and I still stand by this. I called it for the last 2 shows, I think. If they actually had that style of dispersion, I think it would quickly become the go-to meta for the HMG, the autocannon version. It's just there would be a lot of good advantages to it, and I don't know that that's a bad thing either. I think that's really where it would go, because the boundless would not be helpful. The burst would probably still get some good action depending on the map and where you wanted to put a guy. But I think the autocannon version would quickly become the go-to.
The funny thing is if Rattati decided to replace the entire HMG line with an autocannon line, I wouldn't complain. I don't want you guys to lynch me for this, but I honestly think that the altering reticle for the autocannon should just be completely done away with. Just have a static reticle.
Well, yeah, see, and that, again, it just goes back to the fact that there is no weapon on the face of the earth that the longer you fire it, the steadier it gets. That's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, well, sci-fi reasons and gyroscopes and stuff. I'm not going to argue that point. It's not worth it, and it's, quite frankly, kind of immersion breaking.
Yep. All right. So, all right, now we've talked about HMGs. I think the next one was the ASCAR changes. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Wow, they melt people.
Yeah, they're fucking ridiculous.
Whether or not they're OP, whether or not they're straight up OP or not, I still, my verdict's still out on it. They're definitely better. Like, you can feel that they're better. They're definitely performing better. But are they performing hands down better than any other rifle out there? I don't know. Like, I found a lot of situations where I would still prefer a rail rifle, even an assault rail rifle, over the assault scrambler rifle.
I would give it a little bit of time, let people kind of play around with it. The short answer right now is it doesn't have a charge mechanic. Heat's generally not a factor with it. Even without an Amar assault, by the way.
You just have to feather the trigger just a little.
It's got a good aim down sight system. It's got good range, and it's got best light weapon DPS right now. That's kind of hard. There's a lot going for it. Plus, it's got a deep magazine well as well. It's got you can put a lot of energy bullets downrange, if you will. So there's really, other than the CPU PG, like it is a little bit of a resource hog, but other than that, not a lot of downsides right now to that thing.
Reload's fast too.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Overall, I think we're going to come to find out that we overbuffed the hell out of it, and we're going to have to do middle ground between previous and current.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty accurate. Let's see. I will I think that probably covered most of the non-vehicular stuff. What I would like to do is kind of I have not played around with vehicles at all, other than lavs, which, by the way, are now effectively made of cardboard.
Good.
No, I don't know, man. I don't know that is a good thing.
I'm kind of happy that they're not really tough anymore.
Yeah, but who thought they were tough? That's what I can't figure out. Like, I have never had a problem slaying LAVs ever. Now, I think if I hit a small rock, I will, like the front end of my car.
Now I think the upcoming tweak where they're going to increase the fitting ability on them even more will be good. But I think right now the good thing is that an unfit LAV just will not survive more than one really solid AV shot.
Yeah,
that's a plus out of it. But I would have to say that the fitting on them does seem a little restrictive in terms of reaching the goal of unfit lav is a death coffin, and a fitted lav should be reasonably survivable.
Just remember that what they've effectively done is set the bar for what they have to work against for anything that they want to do with LAVs in the future. They've set that bar very low right now. So there clearly needs to be some work done on these things.
The problem is the old bar was, oh, look, I don't have to put anything on it, and it will survive 2 prototype AV shots.
And that goes back to that panic increase of health on the LAVs.
Yeah, that was dumb. That was incredibly dumb. And they should have just given them better fitting, and more slots.
I say we need medium modules.
Well, that's not even the issue, though. The issue is that they went with the same philosophy for LAVs that they did with HAVs, which is let's give them basically no slots at all and give them a crap ton of base HP to compensate for it. And that's just a bad way of doing it.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much.
When you give something more slots, though, you're substantially increasing its price tag as well. So we have to be very considerate of that, because the LAVs are supposed to be a vehicle that should be easily accessible for everybody, and if making them really expensive is not a good way to go with them.
An LAV should be no more expensive than a prototype drop suit.
Well,
no more.
That expense, though, is if you give a LAV more slots, that expense is all up to the player in terms of how much they want to utilize it and how much they want to fit it.
Well, I think there's also an issue with, at least from my personal opinion, I feel that a lot of the light modules, like especially like the shield HP modules, at like standard level are basically bullshit. Like I think a standard light shield extender is like 180 HP. It's basically nothing.
It's trash.
I think at the very least you might need to really kind of look at the progression of light modules from standard to proto and see where they should be, because they don't feel right. They certainly don't follow the same kind of progression you see with heavy modules. So I think that would go a long way. And then once you get that in a better place, then you can kind of take a look at, okay, at a price point, how much base HP can I have? How much do I need to put on it to actually make it be viable in a firefight? And then you can kind of tweak it and see what the prices are going to land. But I think currently the light modules need some work. I think they're pretty screwed up, and people tend to fit just proto typically for high end game for vehicles. But I think that in terms of an LAV, if someone wants it to be survivable but also fairly cheap, those standard modules need to actually be worth something, and currently they're really not worth the price.
Well, the hilarious thing right now, as far as VAV goes, I'm willing to bet money that most of the complaining about AV being overpowered right now has more to do with the fact that people are trying to run standard fit. Are they trying to run standard fit vehicles against prototype AV and expecting it to survive?
Yeah, and I mean the tier of particularly HP modules can actually be pretty significant, and depending on your tanking style, the regen modules can be a pretty big deal as well. So I mean that's a totally different topic, but I think that in terms of feedback on AV vehicle balance, it's kind of all over the board. I'm getting a lot of mixed reports from both sides saying that they're either underpowered or overpowered. So it's kind of messy right now. I'm curious to see maybe in a week or two, once things settle down and people aren't spamming everything, to see what the actual feel is on it. Because I mean, I know Iron Wolf mentioned the same thing, that reports seem extremely mixed in terms of AV vehicle balance.
Well, the thing is I can't really report on it because I haven't tested it at all yet. And the only way I'm going to be able to test it is if I run standard versus standard, advanced versus... Did I get cut off there?
Yes, you did.
It's a little...
I thought I was connected.
Sorry, what I was saying is the only way I'm going to be able to test it myself is by running standard to standard, advanced to advanced, and proto to proto. Because you can't get a real good idea of the balance points if you're just running proto, or if you're only running standard, or...
Well, there's more to it than just the tier as well. I mean, there's positioning and where people are, and in the current situation, it's one of those things that you can't really determine straight through, ideal condition testing, and that's why I say give it a couple of weeks, and I want to see where things land after that.
Oh yeah.
You know what? I think right now a lot of people just haven't figured out how to work all of the new slots and work out how to have, because now everyone has a lot of fitting variety that they didn't have before, and a lot of choices that they can make. Because I've run into tanks and vehicles that just go down very easily and pop very easily, and then with the same fit I'll run against another vehicle and it will be literally unkillable. Like there's nothing I can do to actually kill it. So I think a lot of it comes down to user efficiency in a lot of cases.
Well, and not to mention that there are some clear issues already. I mean, there's obviously a glitch where they introduced the shield regulators and they ended up going to a high slot, and they were intended to be a low slot, so you really can't gauge shield vehicles at this point because their modules aren't working properly. I also think a lot of the shield module fittings, some of them got changed, like the hardeners got an increase in PG CPU cost. And I think some of the current modules are also too expensive. I think shields are underperforming compared to armor now. Armor feels a lot better. It's a lot tankier, and I feel like I actually take a hit now. But the shields are having some key issues. So I think once we get some of those fixes in that Rattati's been talking about, we'll see where things land. But like you said, I get a lot of different philosophies from different people about how they fit their vehicles, and even just playing around myself, you can do some really sometimes goofy things with it, but there's certainly a lot more variety, which is very refreshing, because before you had your cookie cutter fit, and that was basically all you ran because that's all you had room for. So I think, like you said, people learning how to deal with the vehicles and how to fit them and what kind of tools to use against different kinds of fit is certainly coming back into the frame now, which is good to see. Because I mean, I remember back in the day, you would tailor your AV or your turret selection specifically to counter a certain fit by reading their HP values and seeing how they were behaving and whatnot. And I think we're going to see more of that again. So in that regard, it's certainly an improvement.
Okay. Just really quick, have you messed around with the different types of tanks? The one turret tanks. Have you played around with those at all?
They're bugged.
They're bugged.
Yeah.
Bugged.
They're bugged, apparently. Well, what happened is that even though on the fitting screen, the solo HAV, which basically doesn't have small turrets, but it has reduced fitting for exactly the amount of the small turrets, it's not showing as having small turrets. When you actually get it in the match, it has the turrets, and they are consuming PG and CPU. So basically, you're ending up with less resources than you should have for those solo HAVs, so that needs to be fixed. So I've only really been testing with the main battle tanks, or the standard ones, which have the fitted small turrets, because the solo ones are not working properly.
From the tankers that I've talked to about the solo tank, the SHAVs versus the normal battle tanks, they keep on saying that on the long enough timeline, hands down, there's not going to be a real reason for the solo HAVs, because you can get fitting skill bonuses to your small turrets. So you're actually going to end up with more resources available on the battle tanks, even if you end up being forced to carry those turrets.
Yeah, the solo tanks were added kind of as a means to appease people who just didn't want to have small turrets, while avoiding the issue of foregoing your small turrets to get extra resources. So, I mean, I don't think there's really a point to them, but I guess some people might like them. So,
is there
whatever.
any difference in the base HP or speed of the vehicles?
No, they're identical in every way.
See, that's honestly where they could have made a difference. Like, you have full tanks, main battle tanks with more HP, slower, but the single turret ones are faster but noticeably less HP. And then you could have, you probably would have ended up with some good variety then.
I mean, I think the idea was just to add give an olive branch to tankers that didn't want gunners at all, like under any circumstances.
That's actually what it was. It's an olive branch to them. Rattati said, no, they don't serve a purpose. They're there for those people. And they also make a convenient prerequisite for the destroyer HAVs that are being planned.
Yeah, on that note, Jay, that the specialist tanks that we've been talking about, basically you've got the destroyer, which is a single turret, no small turrets, and that is the fast, high turret damage, no lower HP version. And then there's the I think he's calling the ultra heavy tank, which is it's got the large turret and two small turrets, but it's very slow with higher HP. So those will be specialty tanks, not the generalist ones we currently have.
Cool.
Yep, that's the plan, and I'm hoping it goes off without a hitch, because damn it, there needs to be some more variety in the vehicle play.
On that note, and I was actually going to save this because we have a few other Hotfix Echo things to talk about, but I might as well throw it out here. Is there anything that went into this hotfix that wasn't mildly to moderately fucked up, like in terms of execution? Like I just went down the list. I'm not tracking anything that went in as intended.
No, the scrambler rifle buff worked.
Okay, all right, fair enough. You're right. It worked, and I think we're going to find out that was a horribly bad idea.
The interesting.
One thing, like I want to make this clear. The one thing that actually is working as intended is probably the thing that ultimately didn't need to go in as intended.
Messed with the militia gear, or the starter fits to really get a feel of those changes either. So maybe those worked as well.
Yeah, the starter fits got messed up too. We forgot to remove snipers from all the veterans, so now they got an invalid sniper fit.
Is this? I mean, and I'm at this point, I'm honestly not like trying to throw rocks, but this this is the kind of thing that worries me, in that hotfix comes out, you can go down the line categorically, and there's, like I said, noticeable issues with pretty much everything that hit the street on this thing. This is eerily like some of the things that would happen like a year ago in terms of when these releases came out, and it makes me a little bit nervous. I mean, is that a fair statement or not?
I mean, it doesn't make me. I'm not nervous about it. Like, as long as they come back and fix it. Like, the Rotati's cycles have been of fixing things have been so much more rapid that I'm not terrified like I would be back in the old days when something would land bad and I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to be stuck with this being bad for 3 months.
I think
or 4 months or 5 months.
I don't disagree with you. I would add, though, that the one thing that you've also seen is that when he's got to go back and iterate and continually tweak things, he basically will give it one more hack of like, let me try to get it okay with this quickie fix, and then he's got so many things on his plate that he wants to do that he'll leave it and he'll roll out away from it, no matter what state it's in at that point. That's the part that makes me a little concerned.
Well, he's usually in the mood of let's see where it works, where it does stand in the data after he gets done tweaking with it before he touches it again. Which sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's not a good thing. Sometimes things need to be hit before it's not on the grounds of being a knee-jerk reaction, but on the grounds that it's just literally truly messed up. But he's trying to avoid the entire knee-jerk reaction as much as possible. But there are times that the community and the CPM are able to influence that, hey, this is not a knee-jerk, this is a definite problem, it needs to be addressed, it needs to be addressed again.
One thing that I was, in terms of that was supposed to be a change that didn't land properly, that I'm actually happy with where it is right now, would be the uplink changes. Like, I've been doing a lot of PC since Echo dropped, and uplinks and the number of them on the battlefield are not an issue. Like, in terms of people running out of links, or I think the count increased for prototype tier, and the count increase was good. And I think I would actually just leave that as is and not try to do the 300% increase in carried for uplinks. That's just one thing that I'm a little concerned about, if it actually that gets quote unquote fixed.
No, some of the uplinks did have the 3x carry. It's just that very few of them actually missed out on it. But here's another issue that's been cropping up because of the new carry-on numbers is logistics are feeling left out, because now an assault or a scout could easily replace them due to the larger amount of carry-ons, and there needs to be an addressal to that when we need to definitely just go in and buff the logistics straight on instead of buffing around it.
The logistics, I think it still serves it. They definitely still have roles, but it's more of the logistics are going to be doing whatever they're specialized in doing. Like the Mimitar Logis do the repping, your Mar Logis drop your links, your Gal Logis do your scanning for you.
That is not. Look, I would offer that is a very narrow and probably not a good way to look at it as a class. There's a couple things going on with it. There is basically, if you think about it, if you did bandwidth or you do the increase in carried equipment with a lowered sort of capacity per equipment unit, doing one or the other kind of makes sense. Doing both, that maybe not going to work out very well. Now, what it will do, and Iron Wolf did mention this, it does increase the value of the equipment carried by non-logis dramatically. That is a legitimate point, and I'm certainly not at the point of saying that people are swiping rolls and stuff, but it will go a long way to potentially devaluing some of the things a logi can provide. Because the reality is that, okay, let's say you're running a Cal Logi and he drops a cool hive, great, but everybody can drop 9 hives. It's kind of not nearly as useful to you at some point. That and the fact that the role bonuses, or the racial bonuses, if you will, for many of the logis really need to be relooked. And having one-trick ponies biracial type, that's probably not a good way to go either.
Another thing that needs to be addressed is the survivability of logis. People just don't want to use them. It's that simple. People don't want to use a logi because they die like paper tigers.
The thing is, though, I mean, like what I found is the logis are still extreme, like absolutely vital. Like definitely in high end play, like you can't do matches without your logis. The thing that I'm concerned with in terms of just doing straight HP buffs to the logis, you end up with going back to where we were before, where this logi suit is hands down better no matter what the situation is.
Yeah, well, I agree with you.
One way to punch that in the face is simply reduce the number of other module slots and just give better base stats, so that you won't have enough room to be screwing around with the rest of the slots to make it better than the assault.
To me, the logi having lower HP is fine, but the logi having lower HP and lower movement is ridiculous.
Not only that, another method of dealing with the logi to avoid the Slayer logi problem, which was entirely a hit point problem, is to dramatically increase the recovery rates of logis.
That's something that I've heard.
It wasn't just a hit point problem though; it was a bonus problem, and you're getting those bonuses to your modules, and that doesn't belong on a logi. But the fact remains that if it still has less HP than an assault, how is it going to be better than an assault?
That's kind of the point that I'm getting at, is you don't want to increase the hit points of the Slayer logi. The Slayer logi was entirely created because they could get almost as many hit points as a Sentinel could.
Right, but
that was what caused
it. But my point is, we've talked about this before, is that if logistics have the same number of slots as an assault and less HP overall, how is that going to be better than an assault in the Slayer role?
It's not. It's not going to be.
And I think that's a perfectly reasonable direction to go, but the problem is that the difference between an HP of an assault and a logi right now is so drastic that they melt. And it's okay to buff the logi's HP if you don't go crazy with it. I think people are afraid if I give them any HP, they're going to turn to Slayer logis, and it's completely unfounded fear. You don't. It's stupid. You can still buff them without making them overpowered, and people can't get out of their heads.
I think there's a design philosophy. When they first started touching the assault suits, they kind of did that pseudo pass on the assault suits, and then they kept talking about doing logis next. That was months ago. I said at the time, like, you really need to do both suits at the same time. Because they're going to play off each other. And everybody called me crazy. Oh my God, that's too much to do at once. I reference you to everything they've done in the last 7 months that clearly exceeded that threshold. The thought process that I would just offer, that I think would be a happy medium, if people would kind of look at it from a logical standpoint, is they are a medium frame suit. Okay, so if your HP value, if your number one slot layouts, high lows are the same, if you make the slot layouts the same, that's hugely helpful. Part two, if you actually make the EHP the same, and then you can adjust things in terms of foot speed. Like, they need to be a little faster. I would offer they could probably use like more stamina rather than just raw foot speed. Let the assaults be 10-15% faster, but logis have 10-15% more stamina. But the EHP is the same. The trick is, I think what you really want is that the bonuses and the benefits that you get from the weapon systems of the assault versus the equipment systems of the logi needs to be really where the defining characteristics of both suits at the medium frame, at the medium weight class is. And I think you'd go a long way to basically evening this whole thing out. If the assaults are clearly better at killing things and the logis are clearly better at carrying and utilizing equipment, and that is really the defining factor, a lot of this problem goes away, I think.
Yeah. As far as it goes, though, I think as far as raw survivability goes, give the logis, better bonusing for, like armor repair units and shield recovery, and let the assaults carry the hit points.
Like, I think really the logis do need to be moving as fast as assaults, but the concern that I have about giving them the same slot layout, you could very well end up See, if you have all these slots and you have more CPU and power grid and you have the same hit points, all you have to do is not run your equipment. And so
the problem being that you can the bonuses in an assault suit aren't the sort of thing that make the assault suit a must-have.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about them. If you look at like Eve ships, the right weapon for the right ship, that was like a 25% bonus on most ships. It was a must-have in most cases to have the right type of ship for the right gun. So what you need to do is make it difficult to stack a bunch of damage mods on a Logi suit.
That wasn't always the case, because there have been cases in Eve where no matter how high the bonus got, it was not that useful on that ship with its proper weapon system. Ferox was notorious for this. It was more beneficial to put autocannons on the darn thing than it was railguns.
Well, so just a quick point out here. What we're really talking about, like from the way this conversation goes, is like, how do you make assault suits better assault suits? Because everybody tends to go, well, you don't want Logis to be too good of an assault suit. But then I point out, well, what have you done to make the assault suits better at being an assault suit? And that's
So Jay,
to me where it comes back
Jay,
from.
So how about we make our next patch about assault suits, our next hotfix, and then we talk about Logis maybe after that.
Well, since you've already messed with assault suits once and did it shittily, if you want to take another stab at it, go right ahead. But if they never
messing
touched,
with you, man.
Well, no, but if Rattati never touched Logi suits ever, it wouldn't surprise me, because he's basically shown zero interest in it publicly, like at all.
I mean, I would like.
Well, I'd argue the whole bandwidth system was
not.
But
a
I know
buff
you
to
don't like
Logis.
it. I know you don't like
okay,
it, but it
I'll
was a
tell you
buff to
what.
Logis.
You go ask Cross Ness and B what they think, if they think that was a buff to Logis. After playing with it for months now, I'm going to bet you money that they would say it's not.
I don't know. In terms of if you need to have a lot of equipment out on the field at the same time, that's still a thing that the Logis are needed for, but hands down.
We definitely need to get rid of the deploy limit per equipment.
Well, but here's the problem, Kane, is I agree with you, but when you add in additional carried equipment, you have now basically undercut any of the subjective benefit you would get from the bandwidth component. Which, by the way, I would still offer that they probably really need to go back and look at like the bandwidth numbers per equipment unit. There's some that need to be increased and some that need to be lowered. I mean, they really need to take a look at that. But when you add in the added equipment, like the added carried equipment, you totally undercut the concept of bandwidth, though.
I mean, I think Iron Wolf actually hit on a good point. I think one of the issues that we're running into is we have on these pieces of equipment max active. You carry these 9 drop uplinks, but you can only have 2 actually active on the field at any given time.
Right, but if I'm carrying 9, not like 2 or 3, like my willingness to drop and pop an uplink or pop a hive, like sacrifice one because I need one right now, dramatically different.
Oh, and not only that, as predicted, the nano hive buff. People running the standard hives, the advanced hives, obviously, because the proto hives are bugged right now. The whole issue with coordinates, people posting up and just freaking playing, hot potato 514 I'm definitely starting to see that occur.
Well, yeah, because frankly, core locus grenades are more effective and generally more tactically useful than a mass driver.
Yeah, we should
That's
probably
because they do more damage to heavies.
But
Yes, that's true.
That's more damage to everybody. I mean,
yeah.
Which actually brings me to a point, is because this is kind of jumping back and forth, given the changes to vehicles in the past. What's the point of having the heavies with the 25% splash resistant right now?
It's a very good point. I mean, if the intention behind the bonus was initially to make it more resistant to the splash damage of vehicle turrets, sure. But we've basically gotten rid of the splash damage for vehicle turrets. So at this point, it's a resistance to mass drivers and grenades.
And plasma cannons.
Well, yeah, direct hits or what you.
But yeah, but I mean, I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
it just makes me shit myself when I see a heavy, but that's the name of the game.
true, but I've killed more Logis because the heavy will walk through the fire, and that core locust grenade that tickled him, fries the Logi behind him. That works for me.
Well, the thing is here's the thing. Core locust mass driver, that's great. The problem with that is these should be the breaching tools that are being used to, say, I don't know, kick the damn heavies out. That would be kind of an equalizer for that heavy machine gun if the heavies had any fear whatsoever of these weapons.
I mean, to right now, the anti-entrenchment tool for massive heavies and massive Logis all kind of hold up in one spot is still the RE. I really wish that wasn't the case. I wish there was. I would rather the RE go to really be dampened down to being exclusively a trap device.
The REs are also bugged. You can one-shot heavies, even though it's mathematically impossible to do it with an RE.
Yeah, I just think that I don't know, fixing the REs would be a good precursor to removing the splash resistance on the heavies.
The splash resistance isn't applying anyway. There will be no change in the status quo.
I'm not talking
Then
about
why the fuck did you? What?
No,
what?
I'm talking about. I'm saying if you made it to where the REs are no longer used as an offensive weapon, you could then make it to where splash resistance is removed on heavies, so that the mass drivers and nades and all that stuff end up being the offensive weapon of choice for entrenched heavies.
That's kind of my point, Kane. The splash resistance isn't working. In fact, the REs are doing more damage than they're supposed to be doing against heavies, period. Even if you take away the splash resistance, it should be mathematically impossible for a well-fitted prototype Caldari Sentinel to die to a basic RE, but they're still dying.
I'd actually to go back to something Kane said about the Logis. I don't want to jump topic, but I wanted to get something in there. You said you're against the logistics having the same slot layouts as the assaults, but the fact remains that actually at the proto level, 2 of the Logis already have the same slot layouts as the assault, and the Caldari has 1 more than the assault, but it's basically spent a low slot on a CPU extender, so that effectively has the same number of assaults. And so it would come down to basically giving the Amar an additional slot. So the point I was making is that logistics at a proto level are basically the same layout as assaults. What you would be changing is mostly the tiers leading up to it, which are a total mess if you ever actually look at them. And as for what you were saying about the fitting, one thing I like to compare is that if you look at a similar philosophy we have in DUS, which is the Scout with the cloak, in which the cloak is very expensive to fit, and what happens is that they want it to make it a Scout only, so they make the fitting reduction by 75%, which allows the Scout to fit an extremely CPU and PG intensive piece of equipment without giving it a huge amount of base CPU PG to work with, normally. And I think that the main issue you're looking at here is more so that the logistics resource reduction bonus is too low. It's 25%, and so you've got a logistics trying to fit basically 4 equipment, but really only saving on 1 of them because it's reducing that 4 by basically the price of 1. Yet an assault, for example, has 1 equipment, and that being said, you basically end up with a 2 equipment difference between a Logi and assault, even with the bonus. And so I think that if you actually increased that fitting reduction bonus in the Logi, but decrease their resources, what you could do is keep their resources actually fairly low, but their effective resources being extremely high if you're using equipment, because that equipment has a lot of fitting power because of that reduction. Yeah. And so even if you don't fit equipment to your Logi, then you're really not gaining much because you're only gaining, 1 slot worth or 2 slots worth of equipment, fitting. And I think if you go that route, then you can certainly, like Jay was saying, bring them closer to the assaults and remove kind of that, I don't want to call it an exploit, but remove that ability to just not use equipment and then super buff your defenses out. And I think that if we actually did that, you could get away with having to be much more closer to assaults, but still clearly inferior, even if they don't put their equipment on there.
Yeah, that's definitely a route I would feel much, much more comfortable with.
That's how they did the Sentinels just recently, because of the perception of heavies using light weapons all the time.
Yeah, they added that reduction to the the Sentinel roll bonus.
I mean, one thing that's actually interesting though, I've seen the tanks rolling around with the flat slot progression. I really actually think that flattening out the slot progression among drop suits would be a boon to the game in general, actually.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I actually rather enjoy the some people will bitch to high heaven that they don't like calling it an advanced or a proto tank because they aren't getting more slots. But honestly, when it comes to fitting, it comes down to what kind of modules do I want to put on this, and then what hull should I be using to accommodate those modules, and not so much I want to have. It works better because I'm not focusing on I have to have this number of modules at this tier. It's more of what tier of modules do I want to use, and then making the hull fit that need rather than relying on sheer numbers like you do with drop suits.
Yeah, and not only that, I think that it would really ramp up like some of the most underutilized modules on drop suits right now is CPU and power grid modules, and if you give players access to those slots early on, maybe they can sacrifice some slots to actually improve the overall power of their basic and advanced frame suits.
Well, and it's more interesting to fit too. I mean, as a new player, as a perception, if you're putting more stuff on your drop suit, even if it's crappy militia stuff, if you put lots of stuff on it, you feel stronger. Whereas the current system, you go, well, I've only got 4 slots and he's got 8, and I know his modules are better than me, so I'm basically going to get stomped. You kind of go into the fight feeling drastically inferior, where I think if you were able to actually, even if the effect is the same, if you can put a lot of modules on there, it makes it more appealing to a new player using a lower end suit.
Well, I mean, and it gives key areas the raw power they need. Like, I would say one example would be think of an Amar Scout. So, you eventually get those 2 high slots to really fill out the role, but you don't get them until the tail end of the progression, really. And, being able to E-War mods are not that hard to fit, So it's something like you can even have low-end Amar Scouts fulfilling their role, but there's still going to be a desire to have more CPU and grid, and people will run proto gear to get that higher CPU and grid, but I don't think necessarily a slot progression really makes sense.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. So
Before we know it, we got tier side.
Yeah.
Only in my dreams.
So we've covered a lot of the Hotfix Echo stuff. I think I did see the note from Rotati on tweaks that like small blaster dispersion still needed to get looked at.
It's terrible.
I have
damage normalization for AV. It's a terrible idea.
Okay. So like with those, I have no experience in them. I assume that the dispersion on the small blaster is still bad, is what we're.
It's really bad. And not only that, they were trying to put the HMG effect where like the dispersion gets less the longer you fire it. It didn't work.
Again, I go back to that is probably not a mechanic that we should be hanging our hat on for those kind of weapons.
Oh, I would rather just have the chromosome blaster, back. Small blaster, anyways, mind you.
Yeah, no, I got you, man. So with that, let's go ahead and kind of let's wrap up the Hotfix Echo discussion, since I think we've covered a lot of this stuff in it. I think the my sum up of it is a lot of on paper very neat changes, perhaps depending on your point of view, but what looked like some good stuff on paper, when it got into the game, almost every single facet of it was a bit sketchy. So that's the part that concerns me a little bit. And I don't mean like from a systemic health issue with the game. It's just I just think this was not a strong outing in terms of a patch or hotfix or whatever we want to call this thing. And I think that it's also exposed some of the deeper sort of differences in perspective on what is good or what is fun, or philosophies between different types of styles or mechanics in the game. So good discussion starter, if nothing else, for guys like us, but probably not the best outing that they've had recently. So what I would like to do is kind of like push out a little bit to some other topics. And we'll kind of open it up to everybody if you have something you just sort of wanted to put on the table for the grab bag here. And I'll open the floor up to you guys. What do you think? Anything on your minds you want to talk about other than Hotfix Echo?
Yes. Sarai, go ahead.
No, you're up.
So in squad chat, someone had I thought it was a fairly brilliant idea. I want to see some thoughts on it though. He said, in academy mode, why not have militia vehicles that are pre-fit, to be not super powerful or not super crazy awesome in academy modes, game modes on the battlefield, kind of like Battlefield 2, Battlefield 4 style. So people can randomly get into a vehicle and kind of try it out, see what it's about. Specifically for Academy. I don't think it would necessarily make sense in pubs or in anything else beyond the Academy.
Unless you make a hack point where it just drops down a random HAV. Secondary objectives.
I think
like a vehicle manufacturing socket.
I mean, conceptually the idea works. I think the issue you run into is with a lack of an actual tutorial. It will be a bit catch as catch can in terms of the vehicles because one, you have to have a logical way of producing getting the new player into the vehicle, and then part two is there actually does have to be some kind of on-screen instructions about this is how you move, this is what you do, this is how you shoot, that kind of, this is how you activate a module, that kind of stuff. I like the idea. But I think the bigger piece is what if the Academy actually had a legit tutorial in it, I don't know, every other FPS game that's out there, in the last 5 years. And then I think having a vehicle ad would be great. I think it'd be a good idea. I don't think it's a bad idea the way you described it. I'm trying to think through the challenges of having that be an effective tool, within the construct of how the Academy works now.
What if we had vehicle starter fits that went away after you left the Academy?
Maybe.
People would want to know where they went.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, you see them on the field in the Academy, and you go away.
Especially since we don't take, the normal starter fits away from people. They'd be like, why do the vehicles disappear?
Oh, because, certain people say that vehicles are overpowered, and they can't be kept as BPOs.
They're very overpowered.
Not right now, they're not.
Depends
maybe not right now, but
it depends on how you fit them. I really think we're gonna see how we're gonna have to see how it plays out, though.
Mm-hmm. I've actually got to go and see if they're actually destructible as standard AV before I can really make a comment.
I killed a Marduk yesterday. Which is that again? I can't remember.
The solo.
It's the solo.
Okay.
Solo.
Well, I killed a Marduk yesterday, and that he ran over me once. So I killed his Marduk, and then I killed his dropship after that, and then I felt avenged.
You're a mean person.
No, it's just good sporting fun. No matter how
many... me over, man. It was...
No, I meant destroying them is good sporting fun.
Yes, it is.
The trick is they do have to have the opportunity to kill, or else it's not really as sporting as we like to claim.
Yeah, well, I mean, he killed me first. I went after him for revenge, gosh darn it.
Okay. Like I said, Kane, I like your idea. I'm just trying to think practically or I like the idea that you're bringing up that from the nameless person in squad, but I'm trying to think, to make it useful, I think you need other changes to the Academy, but conceptually, if they think they can do it, it might be good to try.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than nothing. I think the issue with tutorials always comes down to them being a prohibitively, or they feel like a prohibitively high resource cost to the dev team.
Well, by the way, when you say vehicles, what do you mean, all three?
I'm really not sure. I think it would really depend on how they're fit and stuff. But I don't know. I think it would be not the worst thing in the world for someone to spawn onto a Academy skirmish match or an Academy domination match, and there being maybe a dropship, a tank, and a couple LAVs.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing is you're going to end up do you just want them all to do a Grand Prix start and race each other to see who gets to play in the vehicle that match?
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to still have the same issues that were with vehicle access that you had in games like Battlefield and stuff like that. But
I
It's
mean,
definitely
you have that problem now anyways because you have a vehicle limit, and as long as vehicles are unbalanced enough that they need a vehicle limit, you're going to have that problem.
Right.
But I think that I think the biggest thing that they still need to fix is in terms of starting is the fact that people start as they load in, as opposed to everyone loading in and then the game starting.
yeah. They need to. I can't remember what game it was.
We need a countdown.
Well,
Yep, a 30-second countdown or something.
Yeah,
so the first person.
You get locked in place, but the map loads and everything, and there's a clear countdown, and the match starts once everyone is there.
Or we could like explore the teleporter option that Ritati had brought up. I mean,
Fuck
use
that.
No, we can do both.
Destroy
spawn
the
into
red
a
line.
room that like the teleporter doesn't activate for like 30 seconds or
You mean,
something.
wait, hold on. You mean like the war barge that we don't use anymore?
All right, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
I
mean,
forgot that we had that.
I mean that's. I mean, there's tools that we have that we can use to do these kind of things. I will have to say, I like the idea of not being driven to have an SSD to be competitive in PC. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, like,
hmm.
if you want to be a vehicle user and you want to always get your vehicles in pubs, get an SSD. It's fantastic, but
I mean, I've seen this before in other
broken.
FPS games where there's like a 30-second, like, so the first person loads into the match, but then there's a 30-second timer that counts down before the match actually begins. I mean, I've seen that before.
I'm wondering how much of that in design was an attempt to, because it's very weird to me. It's very strange that they don't have some sort of countdown for a match start, because that's like a normal standard thing in every FPS I've played. I'm wondering how much of it, like, I mean, I think we lost a lot in the shortening of the war barge as well, but it was all an attempt to make it not a 5-minute process to start playing Dust.
Well, I think that some of that boils down to I still think that what they need to do is have it to where you don't go back to Merc quarters after a match every single time. You just keep on.
See, I disagree with that. I don't like the lobby system because you get the same people over and over, and it tends to suck.
That's what I'm saying is you can even if you throw them back in the mix to rematch make, don't put them in the freaking Merc quarters.
Then you're going to wind up with the problem with people complaining that they need to restock mid-fight, and you know how that crashes the game often.
Well, then you people need to know to leave match,
I think
it penalizes leaving match. I mean, there's got to be there's got to be a period where you just drop out between matches.
Well, yeah,
easily,
at the end of the match. At the end of the match, you can decide to not queue and to not go along with the carousel.
I don't know. I don't like the carousel mechanic. It's.
I believe that a better way of looking at it would be to press X to continue the carousel.
Yeah,
that sounds reasonable. Prevents AFKers from hanging out in the carousel too long.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, I also see the problem of uninformed or kind of the average player suddenly getting stuck in with 2 squads of 9 San and a third squad of Latino killers on the other side with them and the other 14 fucking brand new players that are just absolutely getting farmed for like 30 straight minutes.
Well, one of the things that that games implement before, I mean, I would say maybe actually throw them back into the mix, but what you could also do is you scramble teams as well based on the outcome of a match.
I think you can scramble squads.
Then you're not
but
doing
not teams. Yeah, that's the problem. Is it would be too easy to game the Mew at that point, because if I got in, and as long as I could make contact with the other squad leaders, I could bring in whoever I wanted into my squad, and it's at that point you're really kind of loading the dice.
Unfortunately, this is a matchmaking problem, and that's not going to happen without a patch.
I would just offer that it would be really
matchmaking
cool
can be done server side.
Yeah, matchmaking is all server side.
I do think that the idea of having 30 to 45 seconds in the war barge is probably a good thing, and I think it would actually help people squad up. And I don't think you lose. There's no lost game time, because that was, I think Kane's right. That was the theory that hey, you go into the war barge and then you're waiting another 4 or 5 minutes. No, do your waiting before you load into the war barge, but then have a set amount of time in the war barge where you can kind of organize yourself a little bit, or maybe find a squad to hop into. I don't think that would hurt anybody, and I think it'd probably help. The idea of staying in a queue cycle, I think there's merit to it, but boy, there's a lot of shit that you'd have to work out before you got into that.
Yeah, I think I definitely see where you guys are coming from in terms of like if you kept the same people in the same match, you know what I'm saying? Same match instance. I just think that the cycle of battle, merc quarters, battle, merc quarters isn't necessarily the best. So that's all I'm saying.
It plays merry hell with your cache as well because you're loading, reloading, loading, reloading, loading, reloading.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Just maybe even if you are just putting people back into the full pool of matchmaking, don't necessarily put everyone back into the dang merc quarters. And I think that may actually go along well with maybe a slight increase in the war barge time. So you have an increased war barge time, and then you remove always going back to the merc quarters.
Well, I'll tell you, like, now this is true, like, wishful thinking, but if your Corp MCC was the thing you loaded in and you walked around as your little lobby, your quote unquote walking stations, that would make a hell of a lot of sense to me. Like you're loaded into, like, instead of, like, it's like almost like loading into a chat room, it's like a lobby, but it's like when you're there, it's the war barge that you're in is your lobby. And then you can always leave and go to merc quarters and do whatever. That would be a really cool thing. I just think that's probably a bridge too far, though, for them to get into. The other thing I can see, honestly, is, like I said, other than getting trapped into a, kind of a washing machine cycle with a really skewed team breakdown, like what I would fear most is, like, I don't know, Manus Peak like 5 times in a row, because I could totally see that happening. Like some bug where it didn't rotate the map or some craziness like that.
So would it be here's the question is, would it be possible for them to do matchmaking by mu rating, and by a combination of mu rating and skill points on a character, just make it not a hard rule but a priority list?
I still think one of the issues that we have right now is the fact that we still haven't been able to implement 4-man squads. I know that's a controversial change to potentially implement, but I think the issue right now is we have a small enough pool of players and so many people that are hooked into large Lego blocks of 6-man groups that you're actually making it to where you don't have enough pieces for the system to actually work with in terms of matchmaking.
Also, with the player cap, 6 players in a group is very powerful in that social environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
My thought, though, is the matches that lots of new players are getting stuffed into need to have a lot less people like me who have 40 million SP all into one suit class, and are absolutely capable of destroying whatever with standard issue stuff without having to worry about being a prototype.
Yeah, it's pretty legit.
I mean, it's not as bad of a problem. Like, people like me aren't as bad of a problem as people that do it by squad, that way. But it's still a problem. I mean, I can't imagine it's not frustrating for some new player to come up against me and realize, oh, I just butchered you and your buddies with a malicious suit.
Well, for me, if wishes were horses, then what I would like to do is actually reduce squad size to 5 and have it to where ambush might be a little bit of a weird. You wouldn't maybe do that with ambush, but actually have a commander role. Not anything fancy or even anything extra programmed. You just have someone whose responsibility is to drop off map support and overview the map, that kind of stuff. Maybe simply give a simple way to select a squad and then give out an order for that squad leader.
Would that guy be in the match or not?
So basically what it does is the people on the ground running around would make it 15v15. One person.
No, you lost me on that one, dude. The last thing that we need is to have less people in match right now.
Even if you made it a person who's in match, what would wind up happening is that person would hang out in the MCC. It's just the way they do it in Battlefield.
No, and that's what I'm saying. You don't actually have them spawn on the battlefield. Have them spawn maybe even in the MCC.
No, I think that's retrograding though. We need bigger player counts, not less.
The PS3 can't handle it though, which is another glaring issue about what the future of Dust needs to be.
Yeah, no, I got all that, but all I'm saying is, I I think there's better ways that we can work this. Like, for example, like you've got a good tactical map already in the game that a lot of people frankly don't use. They also you'd be surprised how many people don't know you can actually zoom in on the map. But if you tweaked like how orders are given and things like that, or the type of orders you could give, or the amount of controls that you could put on in that tactical map, you could do all that and still have a guy in game and still be fighting, which I think would be fine.
Well, yeah, that's fine. I could actually see that as an option as well. I just think if you have somebody corralling the herd in a lot of situations, even on the more organized any team, the more organized the team is, the more likely it is to win. So even if you have a crappy person leading a team, you're still going to end up with a better result than people just running around with like chickens with their heads cut off.
That's what a lot of times we'd drop an FC into like a tank turret or something like that and let him have the tac map open. And he could also, because 16 on 16, like one gun less is kind of important. That guy could jump out, hack, or he could slay, jump back in the tank if he needed to catch his breath and look around.
Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that. Okay.
So any other kind of dark points that we want to throw out, guys, since we're hitting right about the 2-hour mark right now?
Yeah. I've been trying to conceptualize it, maybe like a low-hanging fruit option for a 1v1 or 1v4 match type. And I was just kind of like going through different sockets, finding like very small sockets that could possibly work for, and the Galente Communications building seemed like a really interesting socket for that, where it's 2 equal-sized rooms, and they could maybe double that structure and then put them together so there's like these 4 interconnected rooms, and then have people through some kind of spawn system, maybe with the teleports like that would activate after a certain amount of time, and then you could get in like equal time into this space, and then you could duke it out with someone. Maybe you could set the terms of like how much do you want to bet against this person that you can take them in a fight.
That's not a bad idea. I mean, we've been talking about having like an arena mode for a while. I mean, maybe that would be one of these fancy, cool new game modes they keep teasing around.
Well, what I would love to see long term, though, is the ability for PC district. So there's so much time that a PC district is not used that the ability. So the issue with spinning up smaller matches is that you probably want to put a resource cap on it. You would tie that to districts, and then basically make it to where people rent out space to do Thunderdomes and all that kind of stuff.
Look,
1v1.
Hey, I'll be honest with you, man. If one of the advantages of owning a district was I could deploy like 32 people down to my own district on my own time to like run practice, like that would be probably that's almost as important, if not more important than, I don't know, ISK or components that you would get from that district.
Exactly. I think it would dramatically increase the value of district space.
Mm-hmm.
And give CCP a way, because the problem with corp battles back in the day was that you could have literally like hundreds of people spin up hundreds of matches that only have like one dropship flying around. I think if there's a way to tie it to the districts and kind of have free access necessarily, I think there may be problematic if you limit people. Like you say, oh, well, I don't want to rent the district out to these people. I think that could be problematic.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like I like the rental idea. I'm thinking in terms of it's my district, I own it. Why can't I go down to that and practice? Whatever I want to practice. Even if you had to schedule it like a PC, where like you have like a practice block noted that's like outside of your attack zone time or something like that. That, hey boys, we know like every night from 19 to 2000 is practice time. That would be huge.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, love to see something like that.
Canvac
be kind of cool.
There's also something interesting too that someone noticed. There is a panda in the Scotsman officer drop suit. Yeah. And I guess Frame noticed it, but it passed right over Rotati. He didn't know that was a thing.
Is that a
now we got a panda suit.
Yep, a pink panda suit.
Now everybody's going to be like desperately looking over all these officer drop suits to figure out where they put the penis.
Somebody will find one.
Anybody want to take a bet on which CCP character the penis is on?
I don't know. Depends on which one I decide to Photoshop.
Oh goodness. Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and roll into shout outs. So if you got a parting shot, lay it into as part of your shout out, and we'll kind of work our way through. So again, just like we did with the intros, we'll pick up at the bottom and work our way up. So Soraya, what do you got, man?
No, don't do that.
You've
He's
had
working
2
on it.
hours to think about it.
I wasn't thinking about it though.
He was thinking about his ferrets. So
No,
Don't go
actually,
there again.
Bowling with them.
It's so quiet in here because since I'm going to Iceland, I spent a good part of today actually migrating both my ferret and my chinchilla cage to my parents' house. So that was quite the ordeal, and now it's very quiet in here. I'm okay.
Okay,
I
so
guess
he
my
actually
shout
has
out.
ferrets.
I miss
how
my
noisy are these things, man? What do you mean it's quiet?
you know they
Obviously
bounce
they're knocking over bottles and stuff because they've been trained to with the ferret bowling. That's probably where a lot of the noise is coming from.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. So,
But I miss them.
I
miss them. There's my shout out. I miss my pets, and I wish they were here.
Okay. And we're going to be opening up a Patreon so that we can get Zell some testosterone shots soon. But we'll talk about that in the next show. Okay. Pokey.
Yeah, so shout out to everyone going to FanFest. Get those devs as drunk as you possibly can. If that doesn't work, then turn for the CPM and get them as drunk as you possibly can and get as much information as you can. Well,
The
yeah,
thumb
that,
screws
Shocker.
You will.
they'll just keep telling, no, it's Icelandic soda. It's totally alcohol free. He'll probably buy it. So yeah, no, there's no official announcement at FanFest, but take the opportunity if you're going to get as much as you can.
Okay. All right, Kane.
Just a shout out to the Dust community at large, and just a shout out to NF Alliance.
Okay. All right. I got you, brother. And Jadek?
Shout out to people going to FanFest. I hope you guys have a fun and safe time.
Awesome. Okay. Iron Wolf?
A shout out to Aeon and Thundergroove for providing me some useful information to feed or tidy back on things fixed.
Good deal. Okay. Breakin?
Shout out to the VAV community. Remember, it killed me. Nerf it. I can't kill it. Nerf it.
Okay. And BAMM HAVOC?
Shout out to terrible internet connection. And bacon and beer. Yeehaw.
Okay. All right. Solid. Let's see. Shout out to the Cobra. He is the CEO of a Dust Corp here, and he's recently had a death in the family. So shout out to the Cobra. If you ever need anything, brother, give us a holler, and we're more than happy to help you out. Let's see. Other than that, shout out to my boys on the Eve side, Agony Unleashed. We're starting to get prepped up for the Alliance tournament season, so that should be pretty fun and expensive as always. Shout out to all those going to FanFest. Again, safe travels and have a good time. In all honesty, enjoy yourself. And hopefully we'll hear some good news coming out of it, or at least we'll hear news. So whether it's good or not is relative. So that's all good. The parting shot that I'll throw out to the room and really to the folks out there is one of the things that I really stayed away from the forums for this week, particularly. I don't post a lot on the forums anymore unless it's something very relevant to me personally. But one of the things I noticed is there's a very, so you kind of go through these little spikes of toxicity, if you will. And we're kind of in one of those right now. It's kind of my general feeling. There's a lot of, kind of not really formed trolly, but sort of, really at the point of, kind of personal attacks or animus against people. And a lot of them, kind of centered around the myofibril thing, or, I think that was really just the raison d'etre, if you will, for the discussion. But the thing that I was looking through was periodically you take stock of where you're at in a game or Dust or a community or whatever, and it just the cumulative effect of changes over time in Dust, particularly. It just it is interesting as I look at what I enjoy out of a game. Okay, and I speak purely from a subjective reason here. It's not about I think something's better or worse or whatever. It's just the simple fact that the realization that Dust is evolving in directions that I don't personally like, or I find enjoyable based on what originally brought me to the game. That does not mean that the game is bad or things have gotten worse or I don't necessarily, or that I'm hating on it. It's just things are evolving in different directions than what originally brought me to the game. Again, not a bad thing, but it's just reality. If you've been playing a game as long as many of us here on this channel have, you're going to see that. And if you're honest with yourself, you'll realize all the way back when you first started playing versus what you have now is, you know, the game is very different and our expectations are very different. So I'm not leaving Dust, nor am I taking some extended hiatus. It's not one of those kind of discussions. It's just that realization that things are not going to be what I originally desired them to be in terms of what the game was sold to me as when I first came to the game. That is something that you will experience at some point. When you play this game or Eve or whatever game, if you play a game at some point for long enough, you're going to realize that. So that was the kind of where I came to this week is watching kind of the discussion on the forums and how people were dissatisfied, how they were voicing that dissatisfaction, and just the personal tone of the exchanges were really tough to watch in some cases. So what I would offer to everybody in the community is like, hey, like you may not think the guy on the other side of the text wall is correct. You may think he's full of shit. You may think he's whiny baby. It doesn't matter. That's his personal perspective. And I think if there's anything I can say about Dust, 32 people can be in a match and we'll have 32 different perspectives on how fun it was, how enjoyable, how competitive, any number of subjective variable that you want to name, there'll be 32 different versions of that. And I think you probably at least need to respect that. You may not understand it. You may totally disagree with what that other person thinks, or, they could literally be in your squad in the same fight and on comms with you the whole time, but have a very different take on the match. And that's okay. So I'm going to wrap all that kind of meandering up to say that Dust is definitely evolving. It is changing. I don't think that the direction Dust is going now is the direction I would have personally have wanted for the last 2 years. But the reality is that is the direction. It seems like these are the directions it's taking. So I will stay with it, at least out of the bonds that I've made inside the community. But that doesn't. I'm just struggling with how much energy you put into the game at this point. And again, as Iron Wolf, I think really eloquently put it very early in the show, the lack of communication coming out about the future of the game really makes it difficult when you come to these kind of points. Do you want to stay with the game at all, or do you really do want to walk away from it? Like I said, I'm not going anywhere right now, but it's one of those things that you really have to think through. So on that note, I do give my final shout out to CCP Rattati. You have kept the game afloat. It's transitioned from a dog paddle to a strong swim. I don't exactly know where you're swimming to, but I know that you're still swimming, even though your signature says you suck at swimming.